What up, YouTube? It's your boy ATrueHero. And as you can see, it's not a true hero in front of you, but the GOAT of GOATs himself, Alvarado. If you don't know about him, he's actually a Shonen Jump Championship. He recently just won the GDP, and also he's topped a plethora of GOAT events. This man is literally one of the best GOAT players of all time, and he gave me the pleasure of being on the team. So tell us about yourself.
I appreciate the introduction. Appreciate it, TrueHero, having me on your channel for the deck profile. Yeah, this week was a 3v3 opportunity for some retro formats to get together. And when you came to me with the proposition of being on the team with you and Luke, I couldn't pass up on it. It was an opportunity for me to travel, come to an event, have a great time, and definitely did come here and do exactly that. One of my things that I always preach online is, the online game is the real game, and in real life is sort of the backside when it comes to it because of the talent pool and everything like that. But I think the biggest thing that in person has in IRL versus computer is the people, and you can never beat that. So the experience at Vegas was amazing. I got to see a bunch of people from the Discord community, and again I got to meet my two teammates for the first time in person and have a great time. Relative to the introduction, yep, Anthony Alvarado, Shonen Jump champion back in 2005, one of the original GOAT format Shonen Jump champions, right? Not just your champion of champions, but actually won a Shonen Jump in GOAT format. Online these days, I play in a bunch of Patreons every month on GOAT Formats Discord, so if you get a chance, check out GOATformat.com, check out the Discord, join the Patreons, and become a qualifier for the World Championship in October. Outside of that, Format Library also has the Format Library Championship FLCs. GoFormat.com has the GFCs. I've been able to win both of those. So to your point, champion of champions, I've held almost every crown there is when it comes to GOAT format. So nothing to be said. Let's just jump right into the deck profile.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so it is GOAT format. So obviously, the pot of greed deck box along with the support. The number one thing I wanted to show off, right? So I decided for this 3v3 to run Chaos Turbo. I firmly believe Chaos Turbo is positioned as the best deck of the format. While many folks say the format is solved, I still think a lot of skill and dueling style goes into winning matches. But relative to the deck, let's get into it. The first cards that you're going to see, obviously, are your 3 boss monsters, your 2 sorcerers, and 1 BLS. It's pretty standard. You're not going to see much deviation, and I'll go into an explanation in a few why. But the monsters are pretty standard. You're going to have the 3 Chaos, followed by your 3 Thunder Dragons. For flips, I did decide just to run 2 Dekoichis. Due to the varied field with aggro players, perhaps a lot of warriors, I decided that 3 Spy were more important than 2 Dekoichis. Your traditional 2 Fates. Outside of that, I ran 2 Night Assailants to support the flip engine as long as the Chaos engine. They're an additional dark, so it helps you keep your dark count pretty high. And then for your 1-ofs, I have the traditional Breaker Sanguine Serpent, like your Tribe Affecting Virus, and your Tsukiyomi. Nothing out of the question, nothing out of the ordinary here. Your 20 standard monsters. A lot of people deviate, perhaps run a Kaiku in the main deck. I've been known to win Go Format championships in Europe with Zambira in the main deck, but I think overall these are your top 20 guys that you'll see in most standard Chaos Turbo builds. So I felt for this particular 3v3, the standard was sufficient. For spells, we have the Trinity. Okay. Obviously, Go format, you have to play these cards, you have to see these cards. They're amazing to draw, and if you can manage to draw them in real life, just like in computer, you're way ahead of the game. For deck speed, I decided to main deck the Card Destruction and 2 Upstarts. The one controversy card you'll see is Card Destruction, and that's because a lot of people fear that there's little to no benefit or there's mixed results when you're dealing with a mirror match. I always feel I will time my cards better, I will take advantage of my cards better, and I will increase the opportunities and proficiencies of all my cards, including Card Destruction. For spell trap removal, I did decide to run Heavy and Typhoon. Typhoon's another controversial pick in the main deck when you're dealing with Chaos Turbo mirrors. A lot of people say the back rows are all chainable. Why are you playing the Typhoon? It's better off in the side deck. Again, for 3v3 here in Vegas, you're dealing with a lot of folks who play online. Actually, a lot of folks who play more in real life than online. So they may not be caught up with the most recent trends. So items like Royal Decree may be seen in more main decks than you're used to. You expect to see a lot more control decks in real life. So those goats that you can catch at end phase whenever they summon a monster, or in general when they first set it. I think all that was critical, and it led me to decide to run the MST. Most recently in the Patreons and the GFCs, I've been also main decking the MST. And again, that just plays to the wide field that we can be playing against in Go format. And I just think it's a good card that will always go 1-for-1, and your opponent really shouldn't see any advantage, because you should be playing it so that they don't get a +1 off you. Two cards that are very important in this format are No Mana Crossouts. They permanently solve this, the face down monster rather than mind control. So clearly a staple in the format. Turbo Mirror Match, you're going to need it. Against control decks, you'll typically need it. Obviously not the best card to draw in the Warrior matchup, but sometimes you got to live with the results. And the final card is Snatch Steal. Snatch Steal is just an incredible card in all matchups. You could combo it with Tsukuyomi, you could combo it to push for additional damage, and take control of Chaos monsters to make sure that you can maintain board presence on your side. Cards of note that people in Go format are familiar with seeing that they may not see here are cards like Premature Burial. Premature Burial is one of those cards that, yes, when you can summon an extra monster per turn or have a potent extender, it's great, but in this particular build, you speed through your deck between the flips and your Chaos monsters. You should be able to push through the damage, and cards like Premature aren't necessary. So that's going to wrap up for the spell cards. Again, pretty standard. That's a total of 11. So 2011, we got 9 spots left for traps, and we have the Trinity of Traps. And because of the wide varied format of 3v3 in real life, I decided that I did need to main deck Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute's just one of those cards that folks that are overly aggressive don't know how to properly sequence their cards. They're gonna fall into the Torrential. It's just a great card to have in an open field. Online, there are times where I omit Torrential from my deck, and that just speaks to the level of player I expect to be online, where when they don't see Torrential in your graveyard, they respect that it could still be down. Whereas in real life, no offense, people don't care if it's down or not. They're going to swing and summon and just try to get as aggressive as possible. So definitely something that I'd recommend if you're playing in real life, to main deck the Torrential Tribute. As your environment or your meta gets a lot better and more skilled, definitely consider taking it out, just moving it to the side deck for those specific matchups like Burn or Reasoning Gate Turbo. Discard traps, controversy all the time, whether it's Wing Blast or Regeki Break. I think in open field play, where Regeki Break is the right choice. Phoenix Wind Blast maybe in Turbo Mirror Match, where 50+% of the field's going to be Chaos Turbo, then perhaps you want to go with the Phoenix Wind Blast. But outside of that, Regeki Break is the right choice. Permanently solving or getting rid of the problem, whether it's Kaiku or Snatch Steal, you'll always know that this is going to be the better card. Again, you can see Burn, Level Limit Area B, those floodgates like Gravity Bind. This is going to permanently remove those, so you definitely want that. Relative to additional speed, I obviously have the 2 upstarts, but on top of that, I also have 2 Jarred Reeds. Some of my more recent lists, I've decided to run 3 Jarred Reeds, for obviously the online environment. But here I felt 2 Jarred Reeds were necessary. That's where the extra Torrential spot came into. But the 2 Jarred Reeds are great for the speed for me to get to my Chaos cards. Lets me get to my Thunder Dragon so that I can turn Chaos live. It lets me get to my card destruction so I can pitch the extra resources to generate additional advantages. And in the mirror match, it's going to allow me to actually get to the critical cards that are going to win me the game against my opponent. Running 3 in computer is what I would suggest when you're running online tournaments. But again, it's a preference thing. Some people hate Jarred Reed into Jarred Reed. But it's about managing your resources, and if you know you can survive the turn, then you don't have to worry about dying and drawing into Jarred Reed. And the final 2 cards for the event that were your traditional 2 Trap Dust Shoots. 2 Trap Dust Shoots, I could have run 3. Online, you may see people run 3 because of the high amount of Chaos Turbo, but for in real life, I just wanted to have my deck to be as consistent as possible, limit the amount of possible deck draws against potential rogue matchups such as Warrior, Burn, Reasoning Gate Turbo, any control decks. Some of them run a very limited amount of monsters, but I definitely knew that later on in the tournament, when I played against some of the more elite or efficient players in Go format, some of our own war leaguers, that I would still need to be able to have these two dust shoots available to take advantage of the mirror match. So hopefully I would be able to card D and perhaps draw into them. And we'll get into that when I talk about the side deck, because the side deck does contain the third copy. But relative to the traps, these 9 are what I went with. So my ratios were 20, 11, and 9, and that wraps up the main deck.
All right, that was very well explained. I don't even have anything to add to that. So we can just smoothly transition over to the side and extra deck.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why you're Shonen Jump champion. Everything is just, it's not luck, right? It's very clearly explained.
Yeah, when preparation meets skill, right, you get the results that you're looking for. So,
Yes.
relative to side deck, and I'll explain some of the choices here that are uncommon. Asura Priest. So heading into an in real life event, I felt the Asura Priest was going to be necessary for all those ancient GOAT players that just came out of retirement to play GOATs. The nostalgia of playing GOAT, Metamorphosis, Creature Swap, and those cards. I felt Asura Priest was going to hold value. I considered running a second copy, but due to the conversions that I needed against Warriors, because of the matchup Warrior has against Chaos Turbo, I didn't find the actual space I needed for an additional Asura Priest. I actually ended up playing only one control deck. The Asura Priest did come in, and it was a great card in that matchup. So enough said about Asura Priest. The next 2 monsters, only other 2 monsters in my extra deck, were the Zombiras. And Zombira is a card that, I sort of pat myself in the back to start the trend. A lot of times you saw Berserk Gorillas in the side deck for the Warrior matchup. And I just felt Zombira was much more equipped to handle what I needed. I ran 3 copies in my main deck, even at GFC Europe. About a year ago, and popularized Zombira, and since then it's taken off in side decks and main deck, and typically comes in against anything that's highly aggressive. Even in the mirror match, sometimes if my opponent's the type of person who brings in aggressive cards like Kaiku, the Ghost Destroyer, I make sure that I go ahead and bring in copies of Zombira. It's also good when going second, because you don't have to worry about setting a card into their actual mind controls. But again, it's a very niche card that you should be very careful about when you decide to bring it in the mirror match. It's not recommended. I wouldn't necessarily bring in 2 copies all the time, but it's more of a experience trumps more of all, and based on your opponent and what you're accustomed to playing against them. So I could speak more about it as far as the online, but as far as in real life, I did not bring this in the mirror matches. I kept this out. Only because, again, I don't know the in real life players and how they intend to side. If I did see something in game 2 heading into a possible game 3, then I guess I could consider it. But for the most part, these stood in the side for just Warrior or aggro decks. That was for the monsters. Relative to spells, and I'll just leave these off to the side. Relative to the spells, I ended up choosing to run Book of Moon and Swords of Light as additional protection. Part of the reason I ran the Book of Moon and the Swords of Light was, again, in real life, I'm expecting to see a lot more Royal Decree than I would in online computer play, and I felt these cards here would do a better job of protecting me against that sort of aggression. I expected to see more Jinzo than I've ever seen online, and a couple of times I saw Jinzo during my 7 rounds. So I was grateful to have these cards for that particular matchup, including the Decree, and I think they overall played well. They also, I'll speak about the Book of Moon, served as my 3rd Sakuretsu armor in the Warrior matchup. I didn't have space to run actual 3rd Saku, and I was worried more of the aggro matchup like Chaos Recruiters that ran Decree, and I felt like this 4 here would be a better setup than the traditional swords with 3 copies of Sakuretsu. Book of Moon doubling as something that works against control helped me, and again, if that control deck ran Decree, I would probably bring in the swords too, but this is probably my control package. And then against Warriors, my base would probably start here, and the final 3 cards I'd bring in against Warrior, depending on the matchup, would be 3 Solemn Judgments. The Solemn Judgments were a catch-all for any trick decks, any sort of maybe empty jar deck, something to combo well with anti-Trunade type decks. There was a lot of Stein with Trunade, and I felt this in combination to the 2 Trap Dust Shoots main deck. And obviously, I did run a 3rd copy for the anti-trick deck, just in case. So the 3rd Trap Dust Shoot comes into play against those decks. Rescue Cat, just Stein, and anything like that, I would have my 3rd Dust Shoot. But relative to the Warrior package, I think this is what you traditionally would see. Sometimes you will see this obviously in computer, 3 Sakuretsus with the 3 Solemns and Zambara with swords. Again, I felt this was a more versatile card coming into a real life tournament. So relative to Warriors, that's probably what you would have seen me do. The other aspect of control, if they did not run Decree, was probably something to the effect of this here. So against control decks, once you're able to like nullify their metamorphosis and scapegoats, they don't have much of push to actually get over the top of you. So your flips and your chaos monsters just much more equipped. And if they can't answer your sorcerers with meta because of your solemn judgments, then you're in a great position. So this is probably the cards I would use for the actual control matchups. In addition, if I knew they didn't run Decree, I had the Regeki Break, so it would probably be these 6 cards. Won't necessarily go into what I took out for them, but these 6 cards are basically going to nullify any type of metamorphosis or control type decks for you. So I think these are all important to have shown. Another card, and I'll display all 15 at once, but I really thought it was important that the 3rd copy of Regeki Break got some time to shine, because it's very good against the control. It's also something that I consider running sometimes in the mirror match, depending on how slow my opponent plays his face downs. If they're very easy to read and I know that it's going to be Magicians of Fate, I can also use this. If I'm going ahead first, I can also use it. Against Burn, I only use these 2 cards to actually prepare myself for Burn or Time. I play in real life at a pretty reasonable pace, and anytime you're in a real life event, I think the most important thing you can do is keep that reasonable pace and set that expectation with your opponent and what you expect from them. So I didn't feel like I was going to run into any time issues, so I didn't use Mystic Walk. I didn't prepare with anything like that, and none of the other cards for Burn necessarily took play. If I wanted to go against Panda, perhaps I'd bring in some additional defense. But it wasn't something that I thought was going to be extremely necessary, as far as having Mobius, Mystic Walks, 2 or 3 copies of Dust Tornadoes. I thought these 2 plus my heavy MST and 2 Regeki Breaks in the main deck, with Tsukiyomi recycling my Magician of Faith, I was going to definitely have enough time and energy to push through all of the burn cards. So that's an honorable mention as to why these 2 made it. Especially Chain Energy. Chain Energy is one of those cards that are very tricky, and obviously these can hit floodgates. The other deck that I would bring these in against is the Reasoning Gate Turbo deck. Again, when you can slow down their back rows or hit any floodgates that they may be bringing in, I think it's important. Most people are afraid that Reasoning Gate Turbo decks bring in Decree and they won't have an opportunity to activate these, but I think it's just as important that you understand that you can draw these, or as many numbers of these, because there are more of these than there are of their 3 copies of Decree, and it's much more important to stop their Jar Greeds from getting them to combo pieces, and their most important card, probably Scapegoat, which allows them to protect their life for Stein and allows them to actually trigger their monster gate. So I think end phasing them is very important. So those who are asking, what do I side deck against Reasoning Gate Turbo, I think a lot more Spell Trap removal helps more so than you think, because you're always thinking Trunade, but if they're not resolving Decree and you're able to stop their Scapegoats and their floodgates, I think you're in good shape. So these are very versatile cards. Last cards that I'll sort of go over are your Trap Dust Shoot, the 3rd one, and my 2 Mind Controls. I think one of the most important things to understand is Mind Control is a very coin flip card. I think you have to understand your opponent, you have to understand their tendencies, you have to understand the flow of the game, and it's not something that I recommend using lightly. You could find yourself very far behind an advantage if you don't time it correctly. Stealing Sangins, stealing Tsukiyomis, stealing Sinister Serpents are probably some of the worst things you could do in the mirror match. You're just falling so far behind. My recommendation a lot of times to folks who are just starting is to really pick your battles, whether it's resolving a Trap Dust Shoot first so you know what the flip is and before you take control of it, or consider just holding on to mind controls until you're guaranteed know that you're going to gain advantage, or it's going to solve something like a BLS or a sorcerer. So often I see people blindly try to take a face down monster when their opponent has a live chaos play, not considering the option of just holding on to the mind control to actually have a solution or an out to that chaos monster when it drops. So this is a very skill tense card, and I recommend doing your best to identify when you're going to gain the most advantage by using it. Controversial thing to say, but perhaps consider using 1 when going first, 2 when going second, and understanding how many Dekoichis your opponents has when you see them in game 1 get noblemen. Understanding how many spies in their deck. Do they run any other flips like Mask of Darkness? Is it just your traditional 20 monsters, so you know exactly what their flip counts are? All those come into play when it comes to how many mind controls you want to use and what sort of pace you want to keep at. Too often when you play against the highly skilled players, they're going to play around your mind controls. So bringing in 2 copies and then staring down a Zambira or a Kaiku or attack mode Dekoichis that never went face down, you're just drawing more blanks. So understand your environment, understand where you are, who you're playing against, and decide what's the right number for you. For the side deck in general, though, I think the best counts were the 2 mind controls. I would never play 3rd. I know, shout out to Ghost Rider, he plays 3 sometimes. 3 is just too point flippy for me. I don't come to Vegas to gamble, and I did not this weekend. So overall, just wanted to share back all the cards together so that everyone can see all of them at once. You'll have your spells, you'll have your traps, you'll have your monsters, and close out with the 3 decree here. So this was the side deck I chose to run. It was very efficient for me. It did everything I needed it to do. And relative to in real life, I know one of the most common questions you'll ask is any changes you'd make to your deck. I think the deck performed exactly the way I wanted to, main deck and side. My configuration patterns were on point, my ratios were great, my draws were fine. Overall, I went 6-0-1. Asterisk on the 1. I think Marcus, LOL, if you guys know him online, he's a great player. I think he would have won that match. Our set was already completed, so we did not finish. It's about under a minute left, 600 life points difference, both of us over 7,000. But he was far ahead in the game, and there was likely not an opportunity for me to come back and win. Not to say I haven't have big recoveries and wins, i.e. see the replay against LeBounty week 11, shout out to LeBounty. But if I had to turn on my Yami Yugi and get the W, I may have had to against Marcus, but the judge shut us down. The set was over, and again, I'll take the asterisk. 6-0-1 or 6-1, however you want to do it. I came to Vegas playing goats. I knew I would have a good time. I knew I would be successful. Fortunate for me, I went 6-1. It was unfortunate for our team. And spoiler alert, we did not win the 3v3. Shout out to little to no tops, Silverman, Josh, and Nishard. Huge win for you guys on that 3v3. I'm glad if I didn't win it or James Group didn't win it, that it was you guys. I know you guys personally, so shout out to you guys. But yeah, I had a great time. I went 6-0-1, and the deck performed as is. I would run it just like this if I had to redo it again. And again, shout outs to my teammates, Luke, shout outs to ATrueHero. It was unfortunate that they took their losses at the same time, but it is what it is. We live and we learn, and I think next time around we'll be better prepared. And I really hope the Konami looks at this as a success and they run more 3v3s with retro formats. And I'd be glad to try the future one.
All right. Kind of the last thing that I want to say about this before we move on is, in GOAT format, you actually can have an unlimited extra deck, which is something that's very different from the other retro formats.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, shout outs to Michael. I played Michael round 7. He's a very cool person. They asked me a bunch of questions, and one of the things I share with them is that their extra deck wasn't as complete as they needed to be, and I'll just go really quickly through the extra deck because I think it is important for your snatch and mind control. So the most important cards you're going to need to make sure you run are your Bolters. So I always keep 2 copies of Bolters. I think Dark Blade's important, Dark Flare is important, Dark Fire, the Dragoness, your Fiend Skull, Flame Ghost. I always keep 2 copies of Gatling just because Metamorphosis on BLS. Giltia, because sometimes you need a level 5 light monster thrown into your graveyard outside of the Thunder Dragon. Perhaps if you're running a different deck, Kabbalah Warrior. King Dragoon, sometimes that level 7 that can't be targeted is the way to go. Only things that really answer it in the format are Torrential Tribute, Mirror Force, Tribe Affecting Virus, and Blackluster Soldiers, and DD Warrior Ladies and Assailants because they don't target. Master of Oz, I think it's important to keep a copy around. Jama, yeah, your Reaper of the Nightmare. Roaring Ocean Sea Snake, level 6 water. Sometimes you don't want to hit the certain attributes. 2 copies of Senshi, and again, the 2 copies are going to be Bolter, Gatling, and Senshi. Sandwich, St. Joan, Last Warrior, and of course, you would not have a complete extra deck if you didn't have at least 3 copies of your Thousand Eyes Restrict. I think that's a critical piece. So. Again, shout outs to GOAT format. Make sure you smile, draw Pot of Greed, and have a good time. Appreciate y'all.
All right, thank you so much, man. Very in-depth deck profile.
Hey guys, we're here with ATrueHero. He's going to talk about the 3-3 and give you a deck profile.
All right, so as you know, we got 15th place. Pretty upsetting, but our individual team records was actually amazing. So Anthony Alvarado, he went 6-0-1. He just completely dominated. I myself went 5-2, and Luke Feeney also went 5-2. So we had one of the best team records out of everyone in the event. It's just unfortunate that we happened to take our losses at the same time. But anyway, for this event, I was a true villain. I wasn't the true hero that you guys have come to know because I played Blackwings. So let me get into the deck profile real quick. For the most part, it's pretty standard Blackwings, but I did have one twist. So, triple Sirocco, which is pretty standard, right? You need triple Sirocco because it's really good against the Blackwing Mirror Match and against Value Turbo. Because you can summon Sirocco, pump, and he gains the attack of all the Blackwing monsters on the field. Not to mention, one of Blackwing's weaker matches is Diva Hero Beat because of Alias. Alias beats over all the monsters in the deck. So you can just normal summon Sirocco raw, and that puts actually the Diva Hero Beat deck in quite a tight spot because they're forced to use a back row to get over it if they don't have Honest, such as Bottomless, Deep Prison, or even Gemini Spark. And if they Gemini Spark your Sirocco, you're completely okay with that trade. So triple Sirocco, amazing card. It also allows you to extend into level 8s easier with Gale. Summon Sirocco, special summon Gale, and you can make a level 8. So next up we have, of course, triple Shura, right? It wouldn't be a Blackwing deck without Shura. Whirlwind Shura, that's what every Blackwing player wants to open up with. Shura, when it destroys a monster by battle, you can special summon 1501 or lower from the deck. And a lot of times you're actually going to get value, but there are certain scenarios when you're going to go for game that you might want to consider getting a loop, or if you want to go into a certain synchro that you can get Gale. But Shura, one of the best Blackwings of the deck. Next up, we have, of course, Shura's friend, Bora. Now, Bora is really good in that, like, he can spam the field easily because you can just special summon him when you control a different Blackwing other than Bora, right? So he's used for spamming, but and his piercing effect is quite good too. It's really good against like Treeborn Frog or against any deck with like low defense, obviously. So the quick draw deck, which actually surprisingly got 2nd place at this event, he's amazing against. And he also works well with Sirocco as well because you can go normal Sirocco, special summon Bora, that's 37. And certain cases you might even have it a Gale too, right? And that's 5,000, pump, attack, and no monster that you can set is going to have a defense higher than 5k, right? Anyway, Bora, great card. In certain matches, you might want to consider siding him out because he's not as important as the other Blackwings in the deck. Next up, we have, of course, the Honest of the deck, triple Kalut. In some cases, Kalut can be a little bit better than Honest because Honest, you have to wait until there is an attack between 2 monsters to drop it, but Kalut you can just drop anytime during a damage step. So certain times when your opponent's life points get really low, you can just attack, and as soon as they start subtracting the damage from their life points, you can just drop multiple out of your hand for game. So obviously this card is really good. He's also good because of his attack line. So he's 1400, which is really relevant because that means he actually gets under Bottomless. So sometimes you might not always want to go Whirlwind Shura, Whirlwind Bora, Whirlwind Sirocco because these 9 cards can all be hit by Bottomless, right? And that's another reason why Bottomless is so good against Blackwing because like I just explained, they already hit 9 cards out of the deck. But when you go Whirlwind into Kalut, you can search out a lot of different cards. Like the deck plays triple Blizzard, the deck plays triple well, my deck in particular plays Triple Bayou, and of course you play Gale, right? So that's 7 of the targets that you can get. Not to mention, if you have a card like Icarus Attack, then you can set the Icarus Attack along with the Pollute, and that way you can get rid of the back rows such as Bottomless. That way you can summon your bigger Blackwings without any interruption. So Pollute, definitely an amazing card and one of the key cards of the deck. So next up, as I just said, we have Triple Blizzard. Now, Blizzard, you have a love-hate relationship with this guy because he's obviously also one of the best cards of the deck. He's a one-card synchro. There are not too many cards in Edison format as a whole that can net you one synchro off of just one card. But Blizzard, when he's summoned, you can grab a level 4 or lower Blackwing from your graveyard and special summon it. So that includes any of these 3, 6, 9, plus also the values as well, right? So any one of 12 cards. The only problem with Blizzard is that he can't be special summoned, so you can't get him off for Shore's effect. And also, sometimes he can be dead. And this actually happened to me. So my losses, just to kind of go on them really quickly, right? I lost against 2 really good players, James Ark and Steve Silverman. And against James Ark, game 1, he God-handed me. Think about the best hand a Bayou Turbo player could have, and like he had it, like Dark Arm, Grepher, like everything. And then game 2, I opened up Triple Blizzard. Like even he said he felt kind of bad. So I mean, it's Yu-Gi-Oh, so I'm not complaining, but that is the problem with Blizzard itself, is that even though he's so good, if you don't pull him, if you pull him too early, then he's more of a liability than he is a combo piece. So some people might actually consider playing Double Blizzard, but I think the card's too broken, and especially me, I'm really trying to maximize on kind of like the Bayou Turbo strategy. So with Blizzard, I can make more arm wings more consistently, and also that takes advantage of the values that I play in my deck. So that comes into the next 2 cards, which are Gale. I mean, he's at 1, that's why you play 1. If he was at 2 or 3, you would play 2 or 3 because this card's absolutely busted. 1 card out to Absolute Zero, 1 card out to Stardust, easy access to Black Rose Dragon, easy access to Armor Master. You can special summon him. He just does everything. Like Gale is one of the best Blackwings of the deck. I mean, once again, there's a reason why he's the only Blackwing in this format which is restricted to 1. And lastly, for the Blackwings at least, we have Triple Bayou. Now, some people ask, like, why are you playing Triple Bayou? It's because, as I explained earlier, Bottomless Trap Hole really hurts this deck, right? So there's 9 different cards that get hit by Bottomless. And oftentimes, when you go summon a Blackwing and your monster gets Bottomless, that's the end of your turn. You don't really have much of a follow-up play. And then people know this because Blackwings have been out for a while and they've been dominating the Edison meta. So I wanted to figure out a way, well then, what can I do to prevent me from losing to just 1 card? So Bayou, you can just go banish Bayou, banish Sirocco, right? Because when you think about Bayou Turbo, that deck doesn't lose to Bottomless, right? Actually, I think it's actually correct to side out Bottomless against that matchup. But that's mostly due to the Rykos that the deck plays. But anyway, Bayou Turbo doesn't really lose to Bottomless, but Blackwings do. So it's just like, well then, we need to take some of the parts that are doing good in Bayou and apply them to Blackwings. And that also gets into why I played the next card in my deck, which is Dark Grepher. So I play Triple Bayou, Triple Sirocco, and Grepher. When you normal summon Grepher and you have one of these 6 cards in your hand, your opponent is not going to respond with Bottomless because they don't want to Bottomless Grepher when you go Prio. And then if you go pitch Bayou or Sirocco and send the other piece, then at that point you have a Blackwing on the board. And if they Bottomless it, cool. You still have a monster on the board, so you're not going to eat a lot of damage next turn. And if you manage to protect the Grepher, you can just do it again next turn. So Grepher is really, really, really good in Blackwings. I don't want to play it at multiples because at the end of the day, he himself is not a Blackwing. And you want to draw Blackwings because that's how the deck functions, right? Your cards like Icarus Attack, like you need them to go off with a Blackwing monster. It doesn't work with Dark Grepher, so I think at 1 is the perfect ratio for him in the deck. And the last 2 monsters I play in my deck are Gores. This card is not traditionally seen in Blackwings because it can be seen as a dead draw because Blackwing decks play cards like Royal Oppression and also Black Whirlwind. So my logic is if I have Royal Oppression or Black Whirlwind up, I'm already winning. So there's no reason for me to not play Gores because if I don't have those cards up, my opponent will try to get rid of them as soon as possible if I do have them up. And if I don't have those cards up, I'm actually liable to anything, getting OTK'd. So Gores is that perfect protection card. There have been a few occasions where I've drawn it and it's like, I do have these cards up, but like I said, it's never been to the point where I want to consider taking this card out. I think that this card belongs in Blackwings, but you know, everyone can play the deck how they see fit. Last but not least, Dark Arm Dragon, right? Of course, this is my favorite card of all time. I love Dark Arm. and I'm happy that I can play it in both of my favorite decks, YCS and Blackwing. So this was the monster lineup that I played for the event. So with that, we're going to move on to the spells. Okay, so on to the spells. It's quite simple. Blackwings, they traditionally don't play a lot of spells, so I only ran 6. So we have double Whirlwind. Of course, if you can play that 3, you'll play that 3, but it's at 2. If you open up Whirlwind in almost any Blackwing outside of Gale, Blizzard, or Bayou, then you're probably going to win the game. That includes even if you open up Whirlwind Bora or Whirlwind Kalut, because you just net so much advantage so quickly. Like, that's how Blackwings win. They just spam the field. So this card is just absolutely busted. Next up, the one-ofs. 1 MST, 1 Heavy Storm, 1 Allure of Darkness, 1 Brain Control. That's it. So, I mean, these are just, like I said, the standard spells that are played in Blackwings. Some lists opt to play triple Upstart because they want to turbo into the Black Whirlwind. And I understand the logic on that. Me, personally, I don't want to do that because I'm not a fan of giving my opponent life points. And Blackwings, they're a deck that can OTK you, but they cannot OTK you from 8,000 like YCS. Blackwings usually OTK you when your life points are about like 6,000 or less, and then out of nowhere they just go spam the field with Blackwing, drop Kalut, and you're dead. But from like above 6,000, it's actually quite difficult for Blackwings to OTK you. So I don't want to give my opponents more life points, so I just opted to play these 6 spells. Now there is one spell that I'm missing here that is also traditionally played in Blackwings, and that is Book of Moon. And the reason why I actually chose not to play Book of Moon is because I found myself often siding that card out in almost every single matchup. And my logic is, if you're continuously siding the card out, then why are you playing it, right? Your deck probably has experimental room for other card choices that you can play. So I'll talk more about that when I get to the traps.
So real quick, to touch on your Upstart Goblin comment, would it be safe to say you feel like you are the aggressor in most matchups? Like you need to deal damage to win? Like you're not going to...
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Blackwings is a super aggro deck. And actually, that's one of the strengths about Blackwings is not only they're aggro, but they're also a control deck too, right? Because they play Royal Oppression. They can play both sides of the fence very well. They can control with Sirocco and Oppression, and they play more traps than almost any other deck in the format. And they can also just aggro you out the game. So they play, like I said, both sides of the fence very well. And I don't think that Upstart's control or the aggro part as much.
Right. I suppose Upstart also kind of gives your opponent more free payments in a way for your oppression, you know.
Yeah, that's also
if that were to come up. Yeah.
Right. So,
okay. Right.
And last but not least, onto the traps. So the trap list we have pretty standard. So of course, triple Icarus attack. Some people think that the card should be played at 2 because of the recent rise in popularity of Starlight Road, but I think that's incorrect. I just think that you should just do your best to play around Starlight Road. Most of the time, it's pretty obvious when your opponent has Starlight Road because good, competent players, they know when they're up against Blackwings not to commit more than 2 cards to the field because of this card right here, Icarus Attack. So if your opponent suddenly starts committing more than 2 cards to the field, then like obviously they either have Starlight Road or Solemn Judgment set. So Icarus at 3 is the way to go, and you just have to be intelligent. Games 2 and 3 especially, because that's likely when Starlight Road is going to come in. But yeah, this card is absolutely busted. You could trade things like a Vayu and Icarus for like 2 really important cards that your opponent controls. And that's another reason why I play triple Vayu, because at the end of the day, you don't really want to Icarus attack your real monsters like your Shore, your Boars, or even your Sirokus, right? You only want to Icarus attack them if you're going to get advantage off them. So let's say I go like summon Sirocco, you go bottomless, then you can go Icarus and hit 2 of their other cards, right? But in a normal circumstance, you don't want to just like go end phase, Icarus, tribute my Sirocco, hit your 2 back rows or something like that, unless you're going to go for game. But against Vayu, like with Vayu rather, you don't care because like you just Vayu. So triple Icarus, triple Vayu. It's definitely the way to go. Next up, double bottomless. And this card is pretty self-explanatory. Just a good card. Hits big monsters, and it's really good in the mirror match. Next up, the double D prison. And I'll keep these here so we can see them all together. The double D prison, also a really, really great card. I've always said that D prison is a great card, even though this isn't about YCS. Like even in YCS, I said that this card is really good, even though I didn't play in my earlier list. But it's just great generic removal. It outs a lot of the problem cards in the format, such as Synchro. Every Synchro except Dark Ruler loses to D prison. Really good against floaters and recruiters. Like it's an excellent card. Just one of the best removal cards in the game, right? Next up, the one-ofs. 1 Royal Oppression because we have 1 in the main, right? So Royal Oppression, The reason why we main one and side one is because it's not good against the best decks of the format, which are Blackwings and Bayou Turbo. You don't really want to see this card. Traditionally, you side it out. And because those decks are so prevalent in the meta, right now it's just not the time to main deck double oppression. Next up, we have Torrential. This card actually is not often played in Blackwings, but the reason why I played is because I think the card can net you too much advantage. It's just too good in Edison format to not play. And also, if you have Baby Torrential, like, they're going to play around it like a take curse attack, and if you Torrential them at the right time, they're just going to lose so many of their good cards, and all you lost was a Baby, which can be used later again because it's a graveyard effect. Next up, my tech card, Return from a Different Dimension. Now, this is what I subbed out the Book of Moon for. And the reason why I chose to play Return was because, like I said, Blackwings lose when a lot of their cards are banished, so like Bottomless or Deep Prison. But in the Edison format, there are so many other cards that banish as well. So you also have Kai's the Shadow Monarch, right? And then Blackwings can banish their own cards as well, such as Bayou's Effect, and even with the Lore of Darkness. So there are many ways that your cards actually wind up getting banished throughout the duel. And just being able to bring them back, I mean, it's Monster Born on crack. Like, the one kind of downside that this has versus Return and Bayou Turbo is Bayou Turbo, they can convert it a little bit better because they play Plagues better. So they can bring back all their guys and Synchro, put them back to the graveyard, and then banish and bring them back. But Blackwings, like, more likely than not, you're not going to have a tuner that is banished, right? And even if you have a Blizzard banished, Blizzard can't be special summoned, right? Even if you have a Vayu banished, Vayu can't be used as a tuner rocks on the field unless its effect is negated, right? And if you have a Gale banished, the odds are very unlikely, but then you can convert those. So, I mean, Return is mostly used just for, like, bringing guys back and, like, OTKing. So it's just another element. I'm sure many of you are probably wondering how to perform for me throughout the event. So actually, I didn't really see it that much. So it's kind of hard to say. So it's still kind of like in theory, but if you draw it early, of course, it could be a dead draw. But there's also been games where I pulled it like mid to late game and I like blew my opponent out the water. But fortunately for the event, I didn't draw it that much. But I still think that it's the way to go for the future of Blackwings. Next, Mirror Force, obviously just generic removal, really good at stopping multiple threats. And the course, the one Trap Dust Shoot. You know, this card is cracked. If you go first and you open up Dust Shoot, or if you resolve Dust Shoot almost at any time, then likely you're just going to win that duel because this card is just so powerful. So that pretty much wraps it up for the main deck, and I'm just going to go on to the extra deck and the side deck. Okay, so this is up for the extra deck. We have Armory Arm. And the reason why I play Armory Arm, we're going to see when I talk about the side deck. But basically, I side deck Raikou, and I'm going to talk more about that when I get to it. But pretty much, Blizzard and Raikou is 4, so that's why I side deck. Not side deck, but that's why Armory Arm is an extra deck. Catastor, generic level 5. Android, generic level 5. Of course, this is the standard Blackwing package. You have your double Arm Wing, your double Armor Master, and also your Silver Wing, right? So this is nothing too special, just standard Blackwings. Goyu, Brio, Black Rose, Dark End, Thought Ruler, Colossal, Boris Token. I mean, there's not really much else to say about the extra deck. I think almost every single Blackwing deck probably wants the exact same cards with the exception of Armory Arm. They might just sub this out for like a Chimera Tech. But aside from that, the rest of these 15 are just the standard generic cards that you would see in almost any Blackwing extra deck. So. All right, last but not least, we're going to get into the side deck, which I think is the most important. So first up, we have the monsters. So one Falsadina. The reason why I don't run more than one Falsadina is because Blackwings already have a lot of normal summons. So it's like I don't want to add to that. And generally in Blackwings, just like I even explained with Dark Refer, you want to normal summon Blackwings. Like cards that aren't Blackwings, they don't really go with the flow of the deck. So just one Falsadina is enough. Good against a lot of different matchups, like Diva Hero, good against Frog Hero. Like, this card is really good. One of my favorite cards, actually. But I hate going up against it. It's very stressful when I play Diva Hero. Next up, we have Triple Raikou. Now, this is something that I've been on for quite a while, and I think I'm still the only person who does it. And I think it's right, because Blackwings, actually, they don't have any bad matchups. That's why I think it's the best deck of the format. I actually personally think it's better than Bayou Turbo, despite Bayou Turbo having more results than Blackwings. And the thing about Blackwings, they only lose to 2 cards. And those 2 cards are Royal Decree and Consecrated Light. And they don't even lose to those cards individually. Because let's say you have Royal Decree up, well, then they can just make Brionic. Or they can just make Black Rose, right? There's many outs that they can have to Royal Decree. MST, Heavy Storm, right? Just to name a few more. And let's say that you have Consecrated out. Well, Blackwings know that they're going to go up against Consecrated, so they side in cards like False Dyna, Cyber Dragon, but even if they don't have that, usually the decks that are siding into False Dyna, they also lose to deck demi. So it's like Blackwings can out Consecrate it, Blackwings can out Decree, but it's very, very difficult for Blackwings to out both Consecrated and Decree at the same time. And Raikou happens to out both of them. So a lot of times people are going to actually read Raikou as a set value, which is even better, because another bad matchup that Blackwings have is Hero Beat. So I can like go set Raikou, and my opponents will think that it's a set value, and they're going to go Alias attack, and I can just go Raikou, pop the Alias, and now they can't even change Gemini Spark because it's the damage stab. And now also their other supporting cards are dead as well, such as Honest, right? So Honest, Gemini Spark are now dead. And even if they have Hero Blast, well, like the Raikou's already dead. So it's just like Raikou is really, really good against Hero Beat. It's really good at stopping the two things that do hurt Blackwings the most, which are, once again, Real Decree and Consecrated Light. And it's just good generic removal. And in my list, since I played triple Sirocco, triple Bayou, there's also that chance that I can mill something like Nutty, like one Bayou, double Sirocco, or some combination of those cards. So I think this card is really good, and I do think more Blackwing players should be siding it, but if not, like, I'll happy to be the only one that does it. Next up, we have DD Crow. So for those of you who have been following the channel for a while, you know that I am terrible against the Bayou Turbo matchup. I have so many important losses against that deck. It's actually kind of depressing. Even in the event, like I mentioned, I lost against James Arc on Bayou Turbo, right? So this card is actually mostly for Bayou Turbo because it stops Plague, it stops Bayou, stops Sirocco. It's really, really good, and a lot of times your opponent doesn't see it coming because it's a hand trap. There aren't too many hand traps in Edison outside of DD Crow, Gourds, etc. But yeah, this card is amazing. And in some scenarios, you can also consider signing it against like the Miracle Fusion decks as well, because depending on which type of Miracle Fusion deck it is, they actually might not have a lot of targets in the graveyard. You just throw the one and the Miracle Fusion will fizzle. So DD Crow, really, really, really great generic removal card. Next up, we have the One Knock, and this is also for, once again, any deck that sets monsters, but primarily the Bayou Turbo matchup. Because you get their Raikous, you get their hamsters, and if you do that, you're going to be in such an advantage situation. It's going to be quite difficult to lose. But I do have a love-hate relationship with this card because the problem is, like, if you get dust shooted, which you can't control, right, because the card's at 1. But if you get dust shooted while you have Knock in your hand, your opponent's just not going to set any more monsters for the rest of the duel. Like, this just becomes like a dead card, pretty much. So what you have to do in that case is you have to kind of force your opponent to use a card on it, such as setting it so they use MST on it. That way it got some value out of it. But as far as like knocking monsters, like that's it once they see it's in your hand. Next up, we have the Mind Control. I sided one Mind Control also for the Bayou Turbo matchup and for the Blackwing Mirror match as well. And the way it works in the Blackwing Mirror match is I can take their Siroccos, I can pump, I can take their tuners and synchro. And the way it works in Bayou is actually really broken, because I side in one Raikou and one Mind Control against the matchup. So I can go Mind Control your face down monster, and let's say it's a hamster, flip your hamster, and I get Raikou out of my deck, and then like I can flip my Raikou, and then like I got so much advantage off the one Mind Control. And even if they don't have a set hamster, just taking a Raikou gives me a lot of pluses. Or even if I like take their Grepper, I can go pitch one of my Bayous, pitch one of my Siroccos. If I take their Sirocco, I can pump. Like, Mind Control is so good against Bayou Turbo and in the Blackwing Mirror match, so I chose to side one Mind Control. The one Soul Release, this is for frogs primarily, right? Because some decks like DD Crow just doesn't cut it because Treeborn's at 2, so you would need both Crows in order for it to be effective. And also against Diva Hero, like a lot of times against really good players, they set up their graveyard in such a way that Crow doesn't affect them, but it's really hard to play around Soul Release. So this card's really, really good in Edison format. The other Oppression, like I said, main 1, side 1. I already kind of gave the explanation why earlier. 1 DDV. This card's really good. A lot of Blackwing players are main decking it these days. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, honestly, like, it would either be maining like Return or maining DDV. Like, this card's really good. And in my deck, if I main 1 DDV, it'd also be amazing because of the triple Bayou, triple Sirocco. So, card's amazing. It's like Trap Dust Shoot on crack, right? So, good card. I mean, I'm the one who popularized it. Everyone forgets that me, a true hero, it was me who made this card popular, okay? Me. Don't forget that.
See, I didn't know that.
Yes.
I'm getting educated
Right.
myself.
It was me in Diva Hero, because no one played it in the format, and then I read the card. I just read the card, and I was like, oh, well, I'm playing this. and then everybody started playing it. So it was me. It was me. But anyway, whatever. I digress. Anyway, we have the double rug. Rug really good against the Frog Hero matchup. The thing about the Frog Hero matchup versus Blackwing is actually quite difficult. It's funny because I lost against, I would say, probably Blackwing's 2 his hardest matchups in the event. Lost against James Art, YCS, Steve Silverman on Frog Hero. That matchup is very difficult unless you open up Whirlwind. If you open up Whirlwind, then like it's a walk in the park. That's almost like any matchup with Blackwings. You open up Whirlwind, it's like good luck. It's hard to lose. But yeah, against the Frog matchup is really difficult because even if they have a dupe lock, only certain things can break that dupe lock, right? You would need like a Sirocco and a Bora or like a Tuner or also like an Icarus attack, right? But outside of those, it's really difficult to break up the dupe lock. They have a defense of 2,000, so it's big. It's really big. Sirocco alone doesn't cut it, right? There's so many Monarchs over turn, so double rug to kind of stop the trouble as much as you can. And last but not least, the double dust tornado. Just generic, good removal, and I especially like it in the Blackwing mirror match because I really think that's all you need. If you want to go hard, you can go like double dust and 1 mind control, but most of the time just double dust tornado. Usually the better player wins in the Blackwing mirror match unless one player opens up Whirlwind. If both players don't open up Whirlwind, then like the better person usually wins. If one person up Whirlwinds, the other person doesn't, then the Whirlwind player will win. So like I really like Dust Tornado because it kind of eliminates some of the luck factor out of the mirror match, and also just good generic removal against like certain decks. But yeah, that's pretty much it on the Blackwing main, extra, and side deck. Like once again, we didn't get top 8. It's unfortunate because one of the teams we lost to actually won the event. But still, you know, that's kind of like the luck of the 3v3s. Like when your opponent like loses their round. Actually, Luke Feeney was telling me that of a story of a guy in Magic who like lost like 10 sets, but like his team still got top 8 because like his losses just weren't at the same time as his other teammates, you know. But I really enjoyed teaming up with Luke and Anthony Alvarado. Like I don't think I could have asked for better teammates. I personally feel like I let them down. Like I feel like, you know, if I played better, if I didn't lose, I definitely could have gotten top 8. So I'm very sorry about that. But you know, still I'm happy to have team with them, and I mean, that's it for the deck profile. So thank you very much.
And here we have Luke Feeney. For those of you unaware, Luke is quite the proficient card player. He actually went on a Magic Pro World Tour tournament back in Japan. And also, even at Yu-Gi-Oh!, he's had a lot of amazing feats. During the Gear format, he had several tops, but he was our team's Tangu player. And you want to tell us about how you did and about the deck?
Yeah, sure. So I played Tangu Plant. You know, the format's called Tangu format. I like the deck. It's a lot of fun. I think it's probably the best deck overall, like most well-rounded. I did decently in the Swiss of the main event here, the 3v3 time wizard. I went 5-2. I lost to Agents and to one mirror match, so you know, pretty normal decks. I guess I'll just get right into the profile.
All right.
You know, start off we have 3 Tangus, namesake of the deck. After that, you know, you got your 1 BLS, 2 Thunder King. Some people run 3, but wanted to make room for other cards, which we'll see in a sec. We got the 1 Caius. Most people run that. It's just pretty generically good card. I run Card Trooper. This is kind of a slot that a lot of people play, like Spirit Reaper. Some people play Snowman Eater. I play, you know, 2 Call the Haunted, See You Later, so it kind of helps fuel that. And I just like being able to trade with Thunder King and draw cards, so I like
Did you miss Spirit Reaper at all?
Spirit Reaper is a card that, like, I don't know, like, I think it's pretty decent in the mirror. Sometimes it's stall if they're not expecting it, and they don't, like, make a Scrap Dragon, but against Agents, right, all their boss monsters, Hyperion Pops, against stun decks, like a lot of times they play Skill Drain, so Reaper doesn't actually wall them as much, or they have Gemini Spark with their heroes, you know, stuff like that. So I found Reaper a bit underwhelming. Like when you get in there and rep cards, it's really good, but overall I prefer this guy, I think, for now.
All right.
Yep. For the hand traps, you have 1 Gords, you know, good card, trying not to die when you max see them, draw this. Same thing with the Veiler, just 1 Veiler, because sometimes you need to draw into like something to stop them, like they take the maxi challenge, they're like going to make a Brio, bounce your stuff and try to kill you. Veiler can be a good way to stop that. And then I personally ran 3 maxi. A lot of people opt for 2 and 2, like 2 Veiler, 2 maxi, but I was expecting to play a lot of mirror matches, and I personally think maxi is the best card in the mirror match, so wanted to come prepared in the main deck for that.
I agree with that.
Just, you know, your normal plant engine, nothing really to talk about there, pretty much the core of the deck. 3 tour guides and a Sengen to round out the monsters. That's 22 monsters, pretty normal stuff. Spells, run 1 Econ. Might want to find room for a second in this. Card's really good. Can swing games a lot of the time, especially in the mirror match, because you can always do stuff with their cards. Against agents, a little awkward because if you take like Hyperion, you can't really convert it into anything a lot of times, so it's slightly awkward. But it's really good to kill Thunder King with this too. Like if you just summon a Tangu, they're like, they have a Thunder King, you just turn to defense, kill it. It's pretty good.
It's the brain control of Tengu format.
Yeah, there's no brain control. I mean, there's mind control, which we'll see on my deck later. It's really good. But yeah, this card's quite good. I think I cut this down to 1 just to make room for stuff, but it might have been a mistake. I might test 2 again. It's a really good card, so yeah. 1 for 1, that's all you can play. 1 Foolish, 1 Reborn, Pot of Avarice, Mind Control. Pretty much all staple cards here that you can just run one of. Yeah, nothing really to say there. I run Book of Moon. A lot of people don't run Book of Moon. This could be the second econ, maybe, potentially. I just feel like this is a very flexible card. Like you can use defensively or offensively. Some pretty unique plays you can make with the two. For example, if they go Venus make Gotchi and you have a Tengu and they attack, you can turn their Gotchi face down and then Venus will die. And now they're kind of in this awkward spot of like if they want to summon Gotchi, they have to flip to attack mode, so you can at least get in there with Tengu and reduce their material. So I just think the flexibility of the card's pretty good, and I generally like it. I could see this being a second econ, but overall I think this card's a little underrated. I liked it. Yeah. 1 heavy, 2 space. Some people play 3, but I don't know. I don't think you need a over main deck for stun generally.
So actually I have 2 questions about your spells really quickly.
Yeah, sure. We can go back. Yeah, anything. Yeah.
I noticed that, well, the first one is about Dark Hole. Because some people in Tangu format actually say the card's a little bit overrated.
Really?
How did it perform for you throughout the event? Do you think like it was...
I'm going to be honest. I think if you cut Dark Hole, like... you've gone a little too far off the deep end. Like I think Dark Hole is just so good. Like there are a lot of boards where I can make a really strong board. Like maybe I can make a Leviathan and like a Thunder King or something, and I'm like just praying they don't have Dark Hole. Like that's the one card I really don't want to see. And against like pretty much every stun deck, it's just really good. Like if they go, Stratos, get Alias, summon Alias next turn, beat you down a little bit. This is pretty strong. They don't generally play Starlight Road, and even if they do, right, like you're gonna have to play into that eventually. So I think the card's quite good. Even just 1 for 1 Thunder King, it's really strong doing that. This deck really struggles if you can't answer Thunder King. So overall, it also like plays around Gores to some degree. You attack with Tangu, they drop Gores, Dark Hole, just get another Tangu kind of thing. I think the card's way too good to not play, personally. Right. That's how I feel about it. What was your other question about the spells?
I've noticed you're not playing Scapegoat. So is there a reason why you chose to not play Scapegoat?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, definitely. So a lot of people do play Scapegoat. I generally don't like the card in most formats, like in Goat format or any real old formats. Like I think the card's highly overrated. In Tangu format, what I found to happen often is if you go like end phase Scapegoat or even Scapegoat to like block an attack, you just kind of clog your monster zones and prevent yourself from doing a lot of strong plays. Like if you have 4 Scapegoat tokens, right, you can't summon a tour guide, for example, or if you summon a Tengu, now you're board locked. You have to have exactly like Lone Fire or 1-star tuner, which you only have like 3 of those essentially. So it's just kind of awkward a lot of the time, I found, and not really worth it. If I played double econ, it becomes a little better because you want like fodder for econ, but again, I'm only playing 1 econ, so in my particular version of plants, I didn't really find it to be very good.
Okay, awesome. So on to the traps.
Onto the traps. 1 torrential, 1 dust shoot, just pretty standard. You got your 3 solemns. I mean, not much to say about this. And then I play 2 calls, probably the only difference between my list and most plant lists. Some lists play 0, some lists play 1. I'd say most lists don't play 2. At first, I had 0 calls in my testing. And then my friend Mark Velez was like, you got to play 1. So I tried 1, and I really liked it. Because what I found is like a lot of people say call is like makes your deck less consistent, but I think it makes it more consistent because if you go like Tour Guide turn 1, for example, you get Sangan. Now your call is essentially an extra Sangan, and Sangan in this deck searches like every good combo piece, and all your good cards in this deck, like Debris, your Lone Fire, all that kind of stuff, is all at 1. So you're not usually just going to naturally draw it. So I think this actually adds some level of consistency with Sangan. And then if you do happen to naturally draw Lone Fire or whatever, like Lone Fire call by itself is just as strong as like say 1 for 1 Dandy. Like it's a full combo pretty much. You get to do your TG Hyper Librarian formula Synchron thing, draw 2. It's really powerful. And this is also just good for playing through, like in the stun decks, I really like having these because they oftentimes, like they'll have like a stop or 2, but if you have enough extenders, like you can keep playing through their stuff and do a powerful play. And once you establish a powerful play against a lot of the stun decks, they can't really deal with it. Like TG stun, for example, if you end up getting like off a Trish or whatever, that can oftentimes just be game. Like they pretty much play to have you never get those things off. So this is an extender that can help you get through that stuff.
All right, so that pretty much wraps it up for the main deck. What about your side and extra deck?
Yeah, sure thing. So side deck, start out, we just have kind of like an anti-stun package, I'll call it. So one Snowman just helps answer Thunder King, walls up, generically pretty good card, Debris Dragon target. Good card overall. Like you could even consider maining this over the card trooper. That's like a flexible slot. Depending on the meta, if you're expecting a lot of stun, could be better. Liked it a lot, yeah. Cyber Dragon, a lot of people side like 2 of this, and they also side Chimera Tech. Honestly, I kind of just don't respect Karakuri, so I don't play Chimera Tech in any way.
What's the Cyber Dragon for then?
I mean, it's just the arrogant stun, like, you know, beats over Alias, beats over Thunder King, beats over all the TG guys.
Just a big body.
It's just a big body. I mean, you could honestly consider playing second Snowman or something. It's pretty flexible. I don't think it has to be this, but it was okay when I drew it. Just kind of like a generically fine card against stun. One bottomless. Honestly, probably want to play a second of this. This card was really good against like every stun deck, even pretty good against agents, so I probably want to look into playing a second of this. It was good. Third space, you know, just want removal against like goes and match, all that kind of stuff. Double prison, same thing, good against stun, remove TGs, remove heroes, all that kind of stuff. So that's, you know, 6 cards kind of just dedicated to stun. Then we have the last 2. Decrees, these are mostly for stun, but I also did play against chain burn, so, you know, good against chain burn, I guess, too. Some people play 3. I feel like because I'm siding in other traps like prison and stuff, I don't want to commit to running 3 because you don't want to lock yourself out of every form of interaction like all the time, but it's really good when you do need it, so it's nice to have some.
Yeah, and that also helps against rivalry and ghosting.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely super good against those cards. Next up, we have 2 Crow. This is mostly for the mirror match, but you know, if you play against any like sort of Twilight deck, like Lightsworn or whatever, pretty good against them as well. So yeah, mostly for the mirror, but can be flexible as well. Liked it. 2 Blackhorn. This is mostly for the agent matchup, but also pretty good in the mirror if you're going first. Because, you know, most of the plays in the mirror involve making Xyz or Synchro, so this is essentially another Solemn Warning in that case.
So against agents, you side both Bottomless and Blackhorn?
Yeah, I do, because most of the way the agents beat you is with their boss monsters, be it Christia or Hyperion, and just having as many answers to those as possible I find to be quite important. So yeah, so I think those 3 always against agents.
All right.
And then we got 1 Close Forest.
For the GKs.
This is kind of just for the GKs. It's kind of like I don't know. I never play against GK, so I never even touch this card. It's kind of just a dead side deck card, honestly. But if you play against GK and you don't have this card, you're kind of a little bit salty because like you can make Ancient Fairy Dragon pretty easily in this deck, and you can kill their Necro, and you know having something to search that essentially locks them out of the game is really powerful. So I think it's probably with the 1 spot as long as you think GK is ever a deck you're going to play against. Yeah. And then lastly, we have 2 Noblemen. This is probably the one thing I'd probably change the most about the side deck. I sided this mostly for
format.
I thought it was mostly for Cats with Chaos.
Okay.
Because they started playing like GK Spy recently, and I think that deck without GK Spy is pretty bad, but that deck with GK Spy can do some crazy plays. Like you can go like Spy, flip, get a guy, summon my 1-star tuner, Trishula you. You know, they can just make Arcanite Magician. Like GK Spy is the card that I think that deck needs to be successful, so very good stopping that. And then also if you play against actual GKs, obviously this is very good to stop their spies as well. So it's for like 2 pretty obscure matchups, but those are both matchups that I felt were quite losing coming into the event, so I wanted to be somewhat prepared. But I mean, until those decks prove themselves to be more of a meta share, or like more real decks, then I don't think this is probably worth it. Like these never got touched the entire weekend.
I was just about to ask.
I'd never once looked at this card in my side deck, so I think this was a mistake in hindsight, but I was getting destroyed by this matchup. So I'm just like, I need something. So, you know, probably a bad decision. Probably can be whatever you'd like. Leeching the Light is pretty popular.
Right.
I don't play Scapegoat in my main deck, so Leeching the Light is slightly worse for me because I don't have as many guys to flood to like OTK them with. So that's something to consider. But you know, just a flexible slot. I don't think you have to play this.
All right.
Yeah.
And last but not least, on to the extra deck.
Yep, the extra deck. It's unsleeved thanks to Mr. Cairo here. You know, we got the 1 Trishula, got to play that. The 1 Stardust, the 1 Scrap. Black Rose, Ancient Fairy. I'm kind of going in descending level order here. I will say Ancient Fairy, I think, is a bit underutilized in this deck. Like, I think people often default to making Black Rose even if they don't want to use the effect of Blow Up the Field. And while Black Rose does have the added utility of like using the change from defense mode to attack mode effect, like by banishing a plant in this deck, I think Ancient Fairy, its first effect, especially in a level 4 or lower from your hand, can actually enable a lot of cool plays that a lot of people don't think about. So I think it's just worth, thinking a little more heavily before you just default to Black Rose all the time off your debris. Like, for example, I had a game today where I went debris, synchro with the Sangan on the field, search out my Spore, and I made this, and I specialed the Spore out of my hand, and made like a formula, and made another guy with the Spore, and did like a whole combo that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't make this. So I just, this card's pretty good. Think about making it a little more, also a little light type for BLS, pretty good.
Very relevant.
Yep. Next up, just have Brio, Orient Dragon, pretty standard 6s.
Oh, no Go, you Guardian.
Yeah, sadly. I actually walked by a side event where someone in Tangu tried to make Goyo Guardian, and then he had to be told that it was not legal. So that was kind of funny.
Big ban.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. I mean, they were, it's side events, there's no deck list, they couldn't catch it, but yeah. 5s, we got these two, pretty normal, nothing to say there. The one Army Arm, one Formula, pretty standard stuff. Xyz, we got Levier, Leviathan for your rank 3s. You could play 2 Leviathans, some people do, but I don't have it come up often enough to warrant a spot, I don't think. For the rank 4s, you have Utopia, pretty normal, and then I play Roach. This spot's probably the most flexible spot in the extra deck. You could play Decisive Armor, you could play like a number of things in this spot. I think Roach is the best personally, especially if you play more than one econ, because a situation that comes up a lot against like agents or even like Chaos is you attack into like their Tragodia, and then you can econ your Tengu to take it. You get another Tengu, you can copy level 4, and then make this Xyz. And this Xyz is like essentially 2 Blackhorn Heavens, 2 Solemn Warnings against their boss monsters, so it's going to be pretty hard to deal with for them if they don't have like, anything established on board like the Gotchi already or whatever. So I think this is my personal like anti-agent extra deck card of choice, and I think it's the best one, but because I think like Decisive Armor, while it's quite good, if you can make a 9-star, you can also make Trish.
Right.
And Trish is oftentimes good enough to win the game on its own, so I feel like Decisive Armor will slightly win more, whereas this comes up in more unique situations, and yeah, that's why I played this.
All right, well then, I just got 2 more questions, and I think we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, definitely.
The first one is, outside of potentially adding a second econ, are there any other changes you would make to the deck?
It's a good question. I think you could play around with the hand trap lineup a bit. Like, I think depending on the format, like if you're expecting less plant mirrors and more sun decks, maybe you just, maybe you go to 2 Valor because Valor's slightly better against a lot of the sun decks, like you Valor Stratos at least, whereas Maxi is generally going to be dead most of the game. Or you could even just cut down a couple of hand traps and maybe just play like 2 Maxi, 1 Valor in the main deck and make room for an extra MST or something. But no, like, huge changes, I would say, just minor things based on the metagame. Yeah.
Okay, so last question I have for you is, how did you feel about the 3v3 event overall?
I had a lot of fun. I thought it was decently well run. They started a little late, but once they did start, the rounds were pretty timely. Everyone there seemed to have a pretty good attitude. Everyone's just there to have a good time, play some retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Got to meet a lot of new cool people. Had a lot of fun teaming with my friend Cairo here. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and all that stuff. Yeah, overall, great time. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
I hope everyone enjoyed the video. I would like to take this time to give a special shout out to my Patreons, Televisual, and Enraged Peacock. For those of you who are looking for exclusive content, please subscribe to my Patreon. The link will be in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, ATrueHero out. Peace.
Subscribe or you too will be sent to the Shadow Realm.